Okay, just took off and I'm gaining altitude. And that's kind of the flight plan for the whole flight, is to gain altitude and see where I end up. I'm here at a little sort of salt flat area that's not the actual salt flats in western Utah, but it's near the Great Salt Lake. So like I said, basically I'm just gonna climb and then stop climbing once my battery gets too low, and then glide back down. Today is a great day for flying because all the way up to 18,000 feet, the wind is below 10 miles per hour, which is really calm. The atmosphere is calm, but at the same time, it's an awful day for flying because, well, it's an awful day for flying the solar plane. Because, I mean, let's be real, look around me here. It's like just pure haze. There's some wildfires going on. I think in like the middle of Utah, and then maybe some over in Idaho. And there's just so much smoke in the air. I can hardly see the mountains that are around me. So there's not a lot of sun getting through the atmosphere to hit the solar plane. You gotta take what you get. The atmosphere is really calm, so it's a good day to just climb and see how high I can get. And I'm also not really looking to be out here all day. I mean, last solar plane flight was 4 hours long, if you saw the last episode. And of course, I'm not gonna be flying for 4 hours today because I'm gonna be climbing and not trying to save my battery. But yeah, if it were good conditions, meaning clear air, I would definitely be able to get higher. But whatever. This is kind of the first solar plane flight that's not really just a test, and that's more of like I don't know, what do you do when you're not testing a plane? You just fly it for fun, I guess. Maybe a mission. Already the battery voltage has dropped to 19.8, which is quite a bit. I did put a larger battery in it though. Instead of a 5-cell 2800 milliamp hour pack, I now have a 5-cell 3000 milliamp hour pack. Since I'm mostly relying on battery, I probably should have put my 6-cell lithium ion pack back in it. But I didn't do that. Probably should have. Another thing that I did was enable the compass. If you remember from the last solar plane video, when I would put it in return to home or just in 2D with hold mode, because this is the vector, it would kind of snake, and then I enabled the compass, so I'm thinking that'll help. I haven't tested it yet. Yeah, after the last 2 videos, I started a Patreon page and I was asking for donations to help the solar plane project along financially. And the reward for donating $5 or more was to get your name printed on the solar plane and flown into the air. So that's what I did. I printed off the names of those who donated for that tier of reward. So thank you to those people. Your names are now flying over salt. It's climbing pretty slowly and the battery is dropping pretty quickly. So this flight definitely won't last that long. Another upgrade is I've got the new Dragon Link V3 system, which is apparently a big upgrade over the V2. You're supposed to get a much solider and safer RC link. This is the slim transmitter, so you can see that it's a lot smaller than the old bulky one. And then I've got a micro receiver in the plane. Now, these do have telemetry capabilities, and I don't have that set up yet, but I plan to. You can actually connect a GPS to your RC receiver and get really useful telemetry data. So I don't think that I'll find a lot of thermals out here. The last flight I did, I was just doing a solar test, so I didn't want to find thermals, but now some thermals would be nice. But with this hazy air, I don't think I'm gonna get much luck with that. And also the terrain is really weird for generating thermals around here. Everything's just kind of flat and white, so I don't know. I mean, there are some places that would heat up more than flat white ground, but like maybe over the roads there would be thermals, I don't know. So the HD recorded video that you're seeing from the plane is actually from the GoPro Hero 5 session, and if you look through the FPV camera view right here, you can see it just connected right behind the fuselage. I put it there to reduce drag because it's kind of in the turbulence from the fuselage. And then I 3D printed a little mount for it. It's like a little frame, and it just kind of snaps in there in a rubber band. It goes around the back, and then it clips right onto the 16mm tube. Yeah, I was initially thinking that I'd be in the air long enough as to where the camera would die and not record the whole flight, but now it looks like I'm not going to be in the air for too long, so I don't know. So yeah, not only is the smoke unfortunate because it's reducing the amount of sun that's hitting the cells, but it's also really unfortunate because you just can't see anything. It just looks like a big bowl of soup underneath the plane, which is kind of unfortunate. I was thinking I might be able to get up high enough to be able to see out of the soup, but I don't think that's gonna happen. Yeah, navigating is pretty hard with the smoke as well. So another thing is that right now the sun is getting kind of low in the sky. It's like September 5th or something, and the sun is nowhere near as high as it was in, you know, whenever the summer solstice is. And I was doing some solar testing with the plane just laying out in my yard the other day, and the most power I was able to get was 55 watts out of the solar cells. And back when I did these tests before the longest day of the year, or geez, was that after? I don't know, back in June, early June, I was able to get like 75 watts as opposed to the 50 that I was able to get more recently. So I think solar plane season is definitely over, and if I want to be able to sustain flight now, I'm gonna have to do a total redesign. And that's what I am doing actually. I'm just starting to kind of plan out the solar plane V4, and I'll talk about that in a later video, but it should be a good experiment, as have all the solar planes been. So as far as the testing that I've been doing to determine the best way to wire the solar cells into the power system, I did some more testing last week with MPPT charge controllers and also PWM charge controllers, and I was getting the results that I got reminded me why I am not using an MPP charge controller right now. Like every other comment on all the solar plane YouTube videos that I've posted have been, you need an MPPT charge controller. And I don't disagree with that, but there's a reason I'm not using one, and that's because in all my tests, MPPT charge controllers have either been like equally as efficient or less efficient than just wiring the solar cells directly into the power system. And if it's equally as efficient not to have an MPPT charge controller, why have one? Because they do weigh a bit. But anyways, here's some of the test data that I got from those last few tests. So with these tests, I was not looking at the total amount of power that I was able to get, but rather just comparing one charge controller to the next. So here I had the solar cells connected directly to the motor, and they were generating 57 watts. Then I connected the solar cells directly to a 5-cell LiPo, and they were charging it at 42 watts. Next, I connected the solar cells directly to a 4S LiPo, and they were charging it at 56 watts. After that, I connected the solar cells to a Genasun GV10 boost controller, and then that to a 4-cell LiPo, and they were charging it at 48 watts, which is 8 watts less than without a charge controller. So as a reminder, those are the kind of results that I was getting that led me to not use a charge controller on the Solar Plane V3. A few days later, I tested the Genasun GV Boost against one of these cheap eBay PWM charge controllers, and the Genasun was doing better by only 3 watts. However, the Genasun does much better if you factor in the plane moving around, because it updates the maximum power point much faster than the PWM controller. Later, I tested the GV10 boost controller against the GV5 MPPT controller that I bought to potentially use with the Solar Plane V4. On this day, I angled the wings right at the sun and got 81 watts with the GV boost and 80 with the GV5. This is actually the maximum amount of power that the GV5 can handle because it maxes out at 5 amps. 80 watts should be enough to fly the plane continuously, so my next move will be to put the GV boost controller back in the Solar Plane V3. However, to do this, I will need to switch to a 4-cell battery and use a bigger prop so that it still has enough power to fly. Unfortunately, with the wings pointed right at the sun, I forgot to test it without an MPPT controller charging the battery, but I bet it would have been more efficient than with an MPPT controller. So I've used 3,379 milliamps And the battery is a 3000 milliamp hour battery, so that shows that the solar cells are giving power. And we're only down to 18.57 volts. The voltage is now descending or dropping slower than it was. I'm not getting the best video reception right now, but I am pretty far away, so that kind of is probably why. It's unfortunate because I'm getting the best video reception when I'm facing away from myself, and it should be the opposite. Yeah, it looks like video signal is going to be the limiting factor on this mission, not my battery. So I'm going to drop my throttle all the way. Now I'm just gliding, and I bet by the time I land, my battery will be fully charged again. I might need to figure out a different place to mount my video transmitter, because right now it's just kind of on top of the wing, and there's a lot of carbon fiber around it, so it's definitely not ideal. I'm descending pretty quickly though, that's good. I'm actually descending really quickly. And I'm coming back towards home pretty quickly too, because the wind, I was flying into the wind the whole time going outwards. That's a good way to come down quickly, is just do steep bank turns. Wow, I just like dropped like a rock for some reason, and I don't know why. I wasn't even facing very far down. That was really weird. Glad the wings didn't get ripped off. So it seems like what happens is if I start to dive fast enough, then the plane just kind of sucks itself down into a steeper and steeper dive almost. And that kind of must have been what happened. Maybe the wings kind of flex in and angle themselves downward, or maybe the tail does. I'm not sure. It's not really an issue though, because I'm usually not in a dive like that. Don't think I need these anymore. Uh-oh. Maybe I need a little up trim because it started to go into another dive by itself. Okay, I'm gonna try return to home. We'll see if it snakes this time. It's just starting to circle overhead. So I think what it's doing right now is descending very slowly at 1 amp, but after it hits a certain altitude, it'll throttle up a little bit. It doesn't look like it's snaking as badly, but it's also not really in loiter mode yet. It's just descending still, so, but maybe once it hits its elevation, it'll start to snake more, we'll see. Okay, it just throttled up to 7 amps all of a sudden. So it looks like it's kind of oscillating on the altitude. So I should probably turn the altitude gain down and then maybe increase the cruise throttle. Well, maybe I'll land it and then take off again and then do some more tuning. So I wasn't planning on being out here this long, but I put the plane in return to home and decided to just kind of leave it there while I ate my lunch that I packed. And it's actually doing a lot better than I expected. It's been in the air for about 45 minutes, actually 47 minutes, and the battery voltage has only gone down 0.1%. So even with all this haze, it's about high noon. The sun's about as high as it's gonna get in the air, but it's working. Like it's doing what it's supposed to, and the plane is basically sustaining flight. And I think if all this smoke were not in the air, the battery voltage would probably even be climbing. and not descending 1/10 of a volt per 45 minutes. But anyways, that's just kind of unexpected. I wasn't planning on being out here for this long, but it's kind of cool. So I'll just kind of let it keep going.